Hi everybody, Andy here. It's an intro into a video I did recently, about a week ago, with the one and only Mr. Camel from Camel Finance. Now I haven't had a sit down and a proper chat with Camel for ages and ages and ages, and it really reminded me of the times when we used to do the Whiskey and Rum series. It was really informal, no specific subject, really good conversation about, you know, what we're just generally thinking about, talking about. Sorry about the lorry that's just going by. That's perfectly timed, wasn't it? But yeah, it's been a long time coming, and yeah, hopefully we see a little bit more of Camel on the channel soon. Yeah, sit back, enjoy. It's a good one, this one. See you later, bye.
Very strange patterns, dude. This is lovely. This is a real privilege for me because we haven't done this for ages, have we?
No, it's been a while. Yeah.
How you doing? All right?
I'm good, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Hanging a little bit as we was just talking offline, but that's your fault. Wasn't
Not
my
my
fault.
fault.
Yeah, it is. I've got to blame someone.
No choice.
Dude, welcome. Let's have a good bit of a way out there conversation, if you fancy it.
Yep, always.
Excellent, excellent. Mate, we used to talk about quite a bit in the past, like what a year ago, when we used to have these conversations. We used to like to go out there a little bit. But I did pick up on something you referred to, I think, in your last video. And that was that controlled, what we used to talk about, that controlled demolition that you think the Fed's doing. Can we just expand on that, just for people that haven't really listened to your viewpoint on that before?
Yeah, that for me became, I mean, I think the Fed has a history of being late. And I think what happens is they tend to um I think what they tend to do is kind of orchestrate these boom bust cycles. That's what I think. Um and I think they do it deliberately. We could speculate as to why, but I'm sure, given that there's a bunch of macro guys out there that are able to see when policy is overly restrictive, I'm sure they should be able to figure that out. And for some reason, they're perpetually behind the curve and perpetually late. So that makes me think that it's done deliberately. And then going back to the C19 era, we had a whole heap of change and those three-letter organizations trying to kind of implement more Orwellian or dystopian type control systems. And then I started to, as you know, especially when I first had the channel, I was kind of deep down that rabbit hole and paying loads and loads of attention to it. And obviously, then at the same time, they've got CBDCs that they've been creating and they're basically ready and they just need rolling out, or they're at least they're shelved on standby, ready to go. But all of this stuff kind of feeds into the idea that they seem to be signaling to the world they want CBDCs. And because the CBDCs are potentially so vastly different to what we've got now, there are some elements of similarities, but because they could potentially be a lot more totalitarian and we could lose a lot of privacy and they could be, you know, they could be a lot worse than what we've got. It kind of makes me think that the only way they're going to get people to accept them or be able to roll them out is to do that classic, what's it called? Problem, reaction, solution, where you create a problem, stir up a reaction, and then offer the solution.
Yeah.
And so this whole controlled demolition idea really stems from that. It's like they seem to be wanting to roll the CBDCs out. I don't think they can just turn the system off overnight and reboot to CBDCs and get everyone to be happy about it. So I think what they're doing is deliberately orchestrating this blow off top, which may or may not be complete in the stocks. It certainly looks like it is at the moment. And then engineering a kind of demolition of the system, a big recession, a big sort of global bear market. And then at the end, when everything is kind of, which is, because remember, at the moment, we're in a hyper leveraged system, worse than ever before. There's more leverage, there's more derivatives, there's all sorts of mess going on, record debts. And as that starts to unwind to the downside, I think it's going to make sort of 2008 look like a blip. I think it's going to be significantly worse than that. And then at the bottom of that, I suspect they use it somehow as a opportunity to roll out these CBDCs. So then going back to that problem reaction solution, the problem would be the world economy is blown up, massive deleveraging, etc. The reaction will be everyone's really upset that their banks have failed, or you've got like a 2008 type deal all over again, and the stock market and pension wealth has been destroyed, and the housing market may crash, and all of this kind of stuff. And then you offer a solution where you say, well, we can't fix the debt, and you know all of the money that was in the bank that's now on hold or has been lost or whatever. The solution to that would be accept these CBDCs, and we'll give you a $1,000 sweetener for your time, which most people will be pretty happy to accept. And then that's the way they get the CBDCs in. That's my thinking. That's been my thinking the whole time. And it's not even really my idea. It just seems to be what those three-letter organizations were telling us they wanted to do.
So, excuse me. It makes so much sense. Do you, and with all the tying in to the theory of the fourth turning and those cycles, 80-year cycles and bits, it kind of all makes sense. You can even me, a complete idiot, can see the over leveraging that you're talking about. My words and Kem's words normally when we're talking is it's a complete shit show now. But do you think that they can't print their way out of it and kick it down the road for a little while longer before ultimately bringing in the CBDC type setup?
Yeah, I think they can. They definitely
Yeah,
can. I almost think that's probably inevitable,
yeah,
because I think part of the way you create that whole problem,
yeah,
because I think if you just crash the stock market, that's not going to be a big enough problem. I think they're probably going to need to crash the market, print a load of money, have a round of inflation that makes the C19 era look like a drop in the ocean, and then everyone's affected. That way, it's not just the stock traders and the the rich pension people that are affected. At that point, you've got every man, whether they're wealthy or not, is affected by the inflation.
yeah,
And so it kind of makes sense that they will probably need a whole heap more printing, and maybe that produces some bounces. I'm certain it will produce some bounces in assets.
yeah.
But the
It's
question
got
is,
to.
can they kind of get it back under control? And does, is there any point holding a $20,000 gold ounce if $20,000 has the same purchasing power as 3,000 today, which is where we sit? So it kind of begs that question as like, I mean, it's definitely worth having the asset. It's definitely worth trying to protect yourself.
Yeah,
Because if nothing else, you should be able to hold on to the purchasing power you've got now.
yeah,
But, for the kind of targets that we're seeing for things like gold and Bitcoin over the long term and commodity prices over the long term, it kind of speaks to the fact that the currency is not going to have hardly any of the purchasing power it has today. And again, that also fits with like the general currency cycle, because we get this kind of every roughly 100 years we get a world reserve that starts backed by something, and then it's not backed by something, and they keep inflating it until eventually we have like some kind of world war, and we get a new world reserve that's held by a new country, and again it starts backed by something, they unback it, they print it into oblivion, and the whole pony show goes over again. So it kind of feels like we're at the end of that as well. Well, we are at the end of that because the dollar is the world reserve currency. It was backed, it's no longer backed, and they keep printing and printing and printing. And so you just have to look at history to say what happens next historically. And historically, they do print a lot more, and the currency becomes worthless. And then a rising nation challenges it and takes the new world reserve status. And again, it all goes round. So it may well be that. But I think this time the difference is going to be, I don't think there's going to be a big war. And I don't think, as much as China would probably like to have the world reserve, I don't think they're going to get it. And I think that's where the whole CBDC system comes in, because as tyrannical as it potentially is, it's probably still better than giving China the world reserve status. I would think.
yeah.
So
It's, yes, yeah. I can't imagine that this is something new and hasn't been brewing up we often refer to they, whoever they are, but the people that run the money system, I think that's pretty fair to say. Yeah, the central banks, elite banking history systems that control the money system. I think we've said this before, in my own stupid little brain, I can't imagine that there's not intelligent people to recognize that this is happening. And I've probably been recognizing it for ages and ages and ages, and trying to implement a system behind closed doors for us to be what I call impregnated with, unfortunately, and forced into, whether it's right, wrong, or whatever. It's there. And I can feel it, I can see it, and I'm an idiot. You're more keyed into it all, and you're saying it. So the people that have been a part of that system in creating monetary systems, banking systems, all that stuff that's happened over the years and years and years and years, they must know this is happening. They've got to. And that's why I think when you say a controlled demolition, it totally makes sense to me. It really does. If it doesn't, then it's chaos and no one's in charge, to me, in my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure they knew, and I'm sure that's what this is ultimately. It's them seizing an opportunity, and it could easily be used for good as well as bad, or it
Yeah.
might be somewhere in the middle that's roughly equivalent to today. But they, like you said, they must have been able to see this coming, um, and they probably thought, okay, well, what are our options? Our options are go to war, and then potentially lose and give another nation the world reserve status, or maybe they can orchestrate some kind of reset and roll out a new system which is backed around some CBDCs and some, I don't know, whatever digital basket of assets and a bunch of other things. And if they can make it kind of fair enough to the rest of the nations around the world, then they might just be able to convince them not to go to war over it, not to
Yeah.
try to fight them for it. And so I think that's really what it is. They probably deep down just didn't want to have to go to war and try to defend their currency and
Yeah.
risk losing it to another nation. But unfortunately, I think at the same time, there was a group of these kind of elites on the other side, or opposing elites, whatever you want to call them, that decided this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of increase surveillance and monitoring and tyranny and control. And they were maybe thinking, well, if we're going to have a reset, we might as well skew it in our favor so that we get total domination over everyone's transactions and everyone's privacy and everything else. And it may or may not be that that's actually going to turn out to be the case. It could be that you got the likes of Elon and Trump now that are allegedly the good guys, and maybe they're not going to allow that kind of thing, right? Maybe we're going to have a totally neutral and fair basket of assets, and everyone can tend toward prosperity, perhaps. Maybe it's not going to be you'll own the bugs. No, not you'll own the bugs. You'll eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy, right? Maybe it's
Yeah.
not going to be that.
Yeah.
But who really knows? It could really go either way. But yeah, that's what I think it is. It's probably a group of them that thought, yeah, let's reset the system, and then we don't have to go to war. And another group that thought, well, whilst we're resetting it, let's just skew all of the power towards us, so we get world domination.
It's fascinating when you start just having that open think about it all, um, and try to join the dots a little bit in your own head. But one thing I was really interested. Someone posted something about CBDCs because it seemed to go through that spell of fad, didn't it? Everyone was talking about it, blah, 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 blah. All the fear around it, all the storytelling around it, all the speculation, producing views and everything on social media. Then it died off, I believe, and no one was really talking about it too much. And then someone posted something the other day, and I thought, ooh, must have a look at see what's going on because I never forget, Rishi Sunak when he was a chancellor, before he was prime minister, he did an interview back in 2021, I believe, and I never forget he was saying that by 2025 they would look at almost having that system of CBDCs, and he was like saying how wonderful it is and how they're going to work with the Bank of England and all this sort of thing. And I've never forgotten that. And I hunted down the video the other day, found it, watched it again, and then I looked at. I'm a bit of a sad git, really, but I had a quick look at the Bank of England website, and you've got their whole digital. They've got a page, especially to the digital assets, what we used to call Bitcoin. They call it the digital pound now, and it's just still going ahead. Still updates, recent updates of what they're doing. And I sat there and I thought, there you go. Just in the background behind all, I call it smoke and mirrors and everything, it's just going ahead. There was dialogue with the Inland Revenue of what the Inland Revenue thought, all that bureaucratical bullshit that goes on, processes, is all being done in the background. And I just thought, that's interesting. We're at 2025 now and it's still going. And at what point are they going to bring this into reality? And I still think, personally, unless they're really desperate, I'm not quite sure that we'll see a full interaction of it for a couple of years yet. But I'm sure there'll be, within the next 12 months, some sort of, we're just trying this trial out a little bit more, just bung it out there and then forget it. We'll concentrate on what tariffs and all the turmoil that's going on. So it's really interesting that hasn't gone away at all. It's still being developed and still being used, trialed and talked about at that central bank, wonderful central bank. What's the word I'm looking for? Centralized position. So yeah, it's there. Ain't gone nowhere.
It's not. When I first started looking into it, like seriously looking into it, they were looking at a timeline of 2023.
Yeah.
And these things have been ready for a couple of years now, at least, like designed, built, tested, ready to be rolled out. But they just haven't had the opportunity to. And with any new technology, you need behavioral change, right? Even electric cars or an air fryer or whatever it is, you just get people like me. I'm one of these people that goes, I don't want an electric car. I got a perfectly good petrol car, and I don't want an air fryer. I don't trust them. The fact that they're all over the TV all the time, and all of my family that I would consider the normie family, they absolutely love their air fryer. And for me, it sets off my spidey senses. I'm like, what's wrong with a conventional oven? But if you're going to actually get mass adoption of any technology like that, then you need a behavioral change. You need to convince the average population and the stubborn ones like me that actually an electric car is better, or at least equivalent to a petrol car. You need to be able to convince them. And I think it's the same thing. You can't just roll out a CBDC now and expect people to be happy with it, right? People are already not that happy with not using cash and whatever else. Although we all just get on with it and don't use cash anyway. But this stuff has been ready for a good couple of years. And then that 2023 timeline became 2025. And I wouldn't be surprised if it actually doesn't show up for another few years. And I think it caused a massive stir at the time because people like me were pulling the white papers for these currencies all around the world and going, look, they've literally made it. Look, it says here, it's got a line to say they can timestamp and time lock and product lock your money. They can, make it so that you have negative interest rates. You have to pay the bank to keep your money there. I mean, it's all written in the white paper. I made a bunch of videos covering it. And so it was quite alarming because suddenly everyone was going, oh no, if they bring this in, we are all truly up the creek without a paddle. And then it didn't come in for whatever reason. Now, that could be that they got delayed. It could be that they haven't figured out how to orchestrate a reset or a crash yet. It could be that maybe they think there's more money or something to be generated in the meantime. Like we don't really know. And it could also be, and I give this one the lowest probability, but it could be that the opposite side of the elites have somehow managed to flip the power over to them and they're not going to tolerate it, right? And they want a more prosperous humanity and a digital currency system that's not full of totalitarian control. So we don't know, but I would think they are coming. And I would think, to be honest, that, well, what we know to be objectively true is they're there. They're there, they're created, they're ready. And I bet these people that have created them are chomping at the bit to release them. I bet if you give them the first possible opportunity they get to roll them out, they're going to roll them out in a heartbeat. But I think perhaps for whatever reason, they just haven't got the ability to do so yet. I do think eventually, whether it's this year or next year, we're going to be in a deep recession. And I do think that that's when they'll probably start to have a lot more of a chance or an opportunity to actually start to push these things out more seriously. Whether they I know for a while the theory was there would be this huge reset and maybe a big blackout globally. They switch all the power off and leave everyone in darkness and blame it on a Russian cyber attack or something like that, and then reboot the system to, everyone wakes up with a digital system. Maybe I know there was a theory that that might be the way, but it's maybe seems more likely to me that they'll just roll it out in parallel to get people used to it. So maybe they start with the really low income earners, the people that are on benefits and stuff. And they say, well, if you want your benefit, you have to swap over to the CBDC system. They won't call it CBDC. They'll call it the new digital benefit scheme or whatever. But maybe that's how they grab a third of the population, right? If you want your benefits, just download the app and carry on getting your benefits. And then over time, they can just kind of let the old stubborn guys die off. And as the older people die off, then the new younger ones are born, and the new younger ones that grow up in an entirely digital universe, they've totally got no problem with digital currencies. That's all they're going to have known. So you don't have to worry about changing their behavior. Their behavior will just be they're born into a digital world, and it's super easy for them to envision walking around with digital money on their phones, right? So maybe that's what this is going to be, kind of like a slow boiling the frogs. You know, the boiling the frogs analogy. I wonder if it will just be that.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. When you mentioned about this has been around for a while, I'm a big believer in that psychological thing that you can, and you've got a bit of a plan and you know that that plan's going to really change the way we do stuff, then it's almost good. Great analogy, boiling the frog. Over time, while we can do that, or we, it's not me, but this is what I would do if I had that evilness with my white cat. It makes sense because you can just plug that into the psyche of your populace and then move on. Just mention it a little bit later on, and it's already in there. And by then, the turmoil of living, cost of living, has become a far greater issue to most of us, most people in the populace. And then you can just flip back. Oh, do you remember we've been doing this? And it's just like people go, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, how does that work? Come on, bang, 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 and then just introduce it. So makes sense, dude. That's how you win it over.
It makes me wonder if Apple Pay was kind of like the first domino in this. I've always thought this because, again, there's stubborn people like me that to this day don't want Apple Pay. But I watch my brothers and some of my younger family members. They don't even carry a wallet or a debit card anymore. They only have their phone and it's linked to the Apple Pay. And then they just are used to tapping their phone everywhere they go. And if you think about it, they could quite easily switch that over to a CBDC type thing.
Of course.
And if they pinged my brother or someone else who uses Apple Pay a message to say, hey, here's some terms and conditions, read them. They're not going to read them. They scroll down and take the box and carry on. And for all they know, nothing has changed. But under the hood, it could well be a CBDC type thing. And again, that kind of fits with this whole three-letter organization type idea, which was you'd have a phone and that phone would have a digital ID and passport, and it would have your central bank digital currency wallet, and it would all be kind of linked, everything in one place on your phone. And Apple Pay kind of seems like that to me, you know? Like something I became kind of creeped out about was I wanted to get a second iPhone. I've had an iPhone forever. I can't really go back. And I wanted to get a second one and then have one just with my crypto wallets on it. So I didn't have to take my. Did you have the same issue?
I've got two.
Oh, you've got two.
Yeah.
But did you notice you have to have two SIM cards? Two phone numbers?
Yes, I've got two phone numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went from a place of having a SIM that you could pull out and pop into anything
Yeah.
to now, if you want a second phone, you've got to have a second number.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's not the end of the world, but it just goes to show how personalized that device is that we all carry around, right? It's totally linked. I can't pull the SIM card. If I pull the SIM card out of that and put it in another phone, it immediately starts to say, oh, someone's trying to hack you. We're shutting down all your crypto exchanges. You need to provide KYC and proof of income and all of this kind of stuff. And it's a real pain. And there's really nothing you can do about it. So it's already essentially a digital ID system. It's just not officially a digital ID, but it is implicitly linked to me and my address, and it knows everything that it knows and some stuff it probably shouldn't know as well, right? And it's not that different if you really think about it. Like if it's already implicitly linked to my identification, it probably tracks you everywhere you go within a 1 meter radius, right? It probably knows what rooms of your house are which rooms and all this kind of stuff. And is it that different to a digital ID system and a CBDC with Apple Pay linked, and you no longer need a credit card or a debit card or any cash? Or, I mean, we're kind of already there. I think it's just some technicalities. So it speaks to, again, boiling the frog slowly, right? I think we are slowly boiling the frogs. And like I said earlier, everyone that's old that dies off is replaced with a young gun that doesn't know any different. That's their entire existence and reality. And
It's
so maybe it's going to be a lot slower than anyone first thought. Maybe it's like a multi-decade process to go from where we are to full WEF reset CBDCs, you'll own nothing and be happy. But it seems like we're on that trajectory, even if it is incredibly slowly.
Isn't that the perfect plan though?
I think so.
Psychologically, get the majority of people to just follow what you want to do without them really knowing. That perfect plan, absolutely perfect plan. Getting onto the phone thing, it isn't just a younger generation. I quite often when we're out and about, I see people using like older people, like people in their 40s, 50s, get their phone out to pay for stuff. And I haven't ventured that far. I'm not that adventurous. I still like using my card or cash or something, you know. But you'd be amazed when you start to look around and observe the majority of people are now using this, an app, and it's just been, it has be ridiculously become your personal ID assistant, without doubt, without legs.
Here, I'll give you a weird one, right? So you know Mrs. Camel's pregnant.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been going to the midwife and baby scans and that kind of thing. So you walk into the midwife and they give you a leaflet with almost no words written on it and a QR code. And you scan the QR code, and then all of the data and checks and whatever else they do, test results along the way, get pinged to your phone via this QR code that's all sort of linked up. And even things like information leaflets, you used to be able to get like pamphlets with information on. Even that is like, oh, here's some information about breastfeeding, and then you pick it up and there's nothing but a QR code on it. And you scan the QR code, and then it takes you to an app that gives you the information that would have once upon a time been printed on the pamphlet. Um, so even that I felt was extremely dystopian.
Yeah.
It seemed weird. It seemed super weird to me. And I've done quite a good job at training Mrs. Camel not to scan QR codes willy-nilly because they do present a bit of a risk to crypto holders. And so she was a bit reluctant to scan the QR code. Is there any other way? Oh no, but you've got a phone, haven't you? It was like they didn't even it's just totally normal to the midwife now. Like, well, you've got a phone, why can't you scan the QR code? And I mean, obviously if it's an NHS approved one, the risk of having a weird code that will siphon off your crypto is pretty low. But I did find that extremely sort of dystopian. Dystopian is the word. It just felt unnecessary, totally unnecessary to have a QR code, and there's no other option. And that means even, I suppose, an 80-year-old woman wouldn't be pregnant, but how long is it going to be before everyone is forced into this kind of route, And there's no possible way. Even when I went to a local Weatherspoons not that long ago, most people order via the app now. You know this?
Oh God, yeah.
And I found this mind blowing, but no one goes to the bar anymore. Drinks just show up at the table. And, yeah, I was like,
100%.
what kind of weird future are we living in that you can't even walk to the bar and order a round of drinks anymore? It's just weird, man. Super weird.
It's it's done. It's funny that you mentioned that because we witnessed it. Me and my wife went to Oxford. And I can't remember. We going to Nando's or something. We're sitting at a table and I think, oh, the waitress come out over soon. And it's like nothing, nothing. And I was watching all people on their phones doing whatever. And then I sort of didn't even look. I looked at this menu and it just said scan the QR code and make your order. And I'm thinking, oh, really? Don't have someone come over. So me, being a bit of an old fart, never sort of witnessed that before. I went and just double checked with someone. They said, oh, yeah, just put your order on the phone. And I sat there and I thought, wow. And now when I go out with, if we ever go out with my youngest son, we go out for something to eat, and he always goes, oh, no, you don't have to do it. I'll sort it all out on my phone. I'm like, okay. You don't have to move. You don't have to do anything. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. I find it absolutely fascinating that if you just look back, we can talk about 2020 in the conversation, but if you just look back, what's actually happened over those last 5 years, and how quick the way we do stuff has changed, and it's scarily amazing, and I'm not sure any of us. It's like that train that isn't going to stop, and it's just going to continue going. You either get on it, you get off it. If you get on it, you're a part of society. If you're not, and you're made to feel that you need to be on it to be a part of society because everyone's doing it. It's such a incredibly fascinating psychological process that whoever's sitting there controlling things has found a way of controlling the populace very, very easily with technology. It's fascinating. It's scary. The reason my generation probably find it more scary than anything because we actually have a big difference between having technology this way and not in our lives. But like you say, like my especially my grandchild, my grandson, no any different. Absolutely knows no different. And his mum and dad and that generation are just using their phones left, right, and centre to do anything. It's weird. I kind of want it to feel like it's scary, but I just kind of think, well, it's what it is, and you've got to try and make the best of it. Can I stop it happening? Not sure. I don't think I can. But yeah, it's weird. We are our own worst enemy, and psychologically, we've been so played, so played. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking as well, my mother-in-law works in a school, primary school. No, wait, secondary school? Yeah, secondary school. And their class modules and homework and stuff, again, is on an app on their phone. So they've got this weird this weird kind of dichotomy of they're not allowed phones in class, or they're not allowed to be on Instagram or whatever in class. But at the same time, they need to have a smartphone so they can scan the QR code and take their homework home. And I think it's just really weird because I think about it like I'm about to be a parent, and all of my intuition says, do not give your kid an iPad, do not give your kid a smartphone. It doesn't take him out in the real world, let him splash around in puddles, right? But it seems that I'm going to have to give potentially I don't know what age they go to school, 3 or 4. I might have to give a 3 or 4 year old an iPhone so that he can scan the QR code and get his work in class. And I feel like that makes me feel a bit sick, to be honest with you. I don't like that idea at all. Um, yeah, just weird. And then at the same time, the mother-in-law she's got some pretty horrific stories of the things kids do with their phones at an age that they're far too young to be doing. Um, and then you kind of think, well, if you're kind of integrating them to use phones and they need a phone to take part in class, then they're going to be able to have access to things that you don't want children to have access to. And they're going to, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a really weird one. It's super,
100%.
super weird. But a part of me thinks this is all deliberate. It's like they are conditioning this generation and the next generation down because they're going and that's how you get the CBDCs rolled out, right? This is all part of boiling the frogs again. You have to start them young, get them used to scanning a QR code everywhere they go, get them used to needing a phone to exist and to have an identification to be able to take part in any normal part of society. And it just makes me feel gross because to me, an iPhone and an iPad is not something a child should be able to have. And I understand from time to time, if you're on a car journey, maybe they want to watch a movie in the back of the car, or, probably an hour a day to do some educational content. It's not going to do them too much harm. But for the most part, I largely disagree with that. And yeah, I think it's something I'm going to really struggle with because, like I said, it seems to be super integrated now. And of course, there's also the other issue. If you send your kid to school, even if it doesn't need it for the school modules and the homework, right? Even if somehow you could get away with a paper system, you don't want your kid to be the only one at school getting teased for not having a phone, right? You don't want all of your kids, all of his classmates to be hanging out and socializing online and hanging out in chat rooms and whatever else they're doing, and your kid is like left out. But at the same time, I think it's really bad for them. So it's a weird one, man. It's super weird.
I love these conversations because it really, really makes me openly think about stuff. But I'm with you. I think one of the biggest challenges that anyone can have having a family now is, I think there's a greater onus on being a good parent and recognizing all those things that you've just recognized, and somehow that's going to be possibly a test on how you parent and how you are in your interaction being a parent, and that'd be an amazing test. I watch my daughter and my grandson, and technology's every part of my grandson's life now. It's incredible. At the way, it's mad, really, but at the same time, when he's with us and it's not used as a pure distraction tool, which I get because everyone's busy, then he's still really enjoying getting out, jumping in puddles, feeding the ducks, building, throwing sticks in buckets and throwing water everywhere. So that's the challenge, that to try and keep, I presume, your children balanced in there's, technology's good, but it's not everything. And you've got to be careful with it, like anything in life. That's the challenge. And that's going to be even more of a challenge for parents, as a rule, when they've got the pressure of having to work God knows how many hours just to sustain a lifestyle. And that almost then makes me sit there and think, is the phone becoming almost like the child's nanny? An interesting one.
It is. It is. I see this. I see this in my family and extended family. It's like, oh, I'm tired. Take this iPad. Leave me alone. Take the iPad. And I get it because life can be tiring. I get that. Working two jobs and picking your kids up from school and dropping them off. And a lot of the times there's step parents involved and stepchildren, and they need to be taken an hour outside of the where you live. I see that a lot in other family members as well. They've got like three kids from two or three different women, and they've got to run all over the county, dropping them off and picking them up. And by the time you've done all of that, you're exhausted. I empathize with it. I do. But also, as somebody that at the moment doesn't have kids, I get to kind of sit on the outside and look in, if that makes sense. I don't really have a dog in the fight at this moment in time, so to speak. And I watch the way these kids kind of become zombies staring into the light of an iPad. And even I think the youngest one in our family is about 1 year old. And if somebody leaves a phone laying around, he'll pick it up and, press one of the buttons so the light comes on, and he just becomes hypnotized. His eyes light up in a way that is unlike any toy you could ever give him or any experience. There's just something about the lights beaming into their beaming into their eyes that totally put them in this hypnotic trance state, and he finds it absolutely fascinating. And I just think it's probably not good for him. It's just probably it's not good for him. That's what I think. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird, but I do empathize with it because, to a certain degree, people are tired, and it is the easy option. And I'm not saying there's no possible benefit because I'm pretty sure if you get some certain types of educational apps, you can use it to boost their reading ability and their spelling and that kind of thing. But it's like you said, it to a certain degree in some household, it becomes the nanny. And then it kind of manifests later in life as these children that don't really have any general knowledge. Their entire arsenal of knowledge is memes on the internet. And that's probably not very useful, I would think. But yeah,
It's
I don't know, man. It's weird. It's super
it,
weird.
it is super weird, but when you have these conversations and you really, really deeply think about it, we would spend probably more time talking about all the intricacies of how weird the tech is and how it's affecting us and how we're using all the tech in our day-to-day life and slagging it all off, but we're using it all the time, using it more. And then when I sit there and think, well, how bad will if they introduce the CBDC compared to what we've already accepted and doing anyway? We've given away our identity by having a phone with us, God knows, left, right, and centre. Is the CBDC going to be that bad when we're doing all this anyway? We are our own worst enemy, dude. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, what? I don't think this stuff's good for adults, to be honest. I really don't. Um, I can think of some examples of my wife, where my wife for a while, a few years ago, was chronically on I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook or some sort of social network. And I noticed she just became perpetually almost ungrateful for the environment we were in. She'd be like, "We don't go on holiday enough. And like, we don't do this or whatever." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about? We are the most privileged people that you could ever hope to be, right?" And eventually we kind of talk about it. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to delete it." I was like, honestly, I think it's really making you miserable. I think you should delete it, take a few months off, and then see how you feel. And within about a week and a half, she started to get these weird withdrawal symptoms. And I remember her saying to me, she was like, "This must be really bad for you because I feel like shit." She was like, I feel depressed. Um, and then some more time goes on. She gets 2 or 3 months out without it. And she's like, "I can't ever have social media again. I literally can't go back. Like, I feel like a completely different person and blah, 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 blah." And funny enough, the reason I've got this stupid staffy that's sleeping and snoring behind me is because Mrs. Camel kept looking at staffy puppies on the internet during lockdown and decided, "Well, we need one of those." But if she didn't have social media, I probably wouldn't have ended up with a dog, which is kind of funny. But so yeah, I think it affects everyone. I think it's bad for everyone's brain. But that makes me feel even stronger about not giving it to children because I think most adult brains can't really handle those kind of constant dopamine hits and swiping and seeing everyone else seemingly doing better than you online and everyone else is going on holiday and everyone else is a happy couple seemingly and everyone else has got money and a Mercedes and whatever else. And I think like most of it's probably not even real, but I just don't think it helps. I just don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's healthy. And yeah, like I said, it makes me feel even stronger about not exposing children to that because the underdeveloped brain is certainly less capable of dealing with it. I think I've watched plenty of adults be not capable. But I mean, in and in saying all of this, the CBDCs kind of don't even sound that bad, right? That's just money. It's just money and Apple Pay. Like, who cares?
It's fascinating because I don't know. I don't know whether people get so worked up about it because maybe that is that last thing they're going to give away. That it's psychologically, it's that, oh, I've got that power. It's my money, and I'm not going to give it away to be surveilled. And I sit there, and we've had what a conversation for 45 minutes, and I'm sitting there thinking, we've already given it all away. We've given all the reasons why we don't want CBDCs. We've given it away. We're already using electronic money like there's no tomorrow. Surveillance, well, we're probably at a drop of a hat. People will roughly know where you are through your phone. It's it's mad. It's ingenious. Whoever's come up with all this, how they've very slowly manipulated society through technology. It really is. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, we're
Very
in a
interesting.
we're in a weird situation where you get to pick between the trade-off. And the trade-off is, do you want convenience or do you want privacy? Because if you want privacy, you can have it, but you can't have a smartphone, you can't have a bank, can't really have a job, right? You can steal a phone and use it for a while and be a criminal and earn cash in hand somehow. And in exchange for that, you get privacy, right? No one knows you exist as long as you keep moving and you don't get caught. Or you can have a normal life and not be a criminal and take part in regular society. And in exchange for that convenience, you have to give up privacy. You have to have somebody able to track you at all times. You have to have your transactions tracked and traced. And I know people say, well, just use cash, right? Well, that works to a certain extent for sure. But again, that's a trade-off for convenience. How convenient is it to keep getting cash out and then carry change around and blah, 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 versus tapping a debit card? I'm very guilty of this myself. Very, very guilty. I haven't used cash in a very, very, very long time. I remember the last place that stopped accepting, the last place that didn't accept a card was the barbers. That was the only time I would use cash, was to go to the barbers. And then the barber got a card machine and that was it. I never needed cash again. And yeah, so I mean, I have to hold my hands up and say I chose that convenience over, well, I chose the convenience in exchange for privacy. Now, every time I go to the barbers, somebody knows I've been to the barbers, right? But even if I did pay with cash, they know because I've got my iPhone in my pocket. Someone can look that up and see what time I was in the barbers, for how long, and where I was before and after it. So, yeah, it's very weird. It's very, very weird. And for the most part, I guess it doesn't matter until it does. Until eventually the frogs are fully boiled, the system is 100% CBDC adoption, and then we're at the mercy of them changing the code, right? Then if the code becomes you can't buy meat this week or you can't save more than 2K in your bank account before it expires in 2 weeks, or who knows what the rules could be. And for anyone listening that thinks this sounds extreme, I mean, it is literally written in the white papers for the CBDC, so it's potentially not extreme. It's right there as a potential option they're looking at later in life. And it may or may not be that bad, right? It may or may not be that bad. It could be used for good, full transparency. It could be used for no one being able to dodge tax versus a handful of people that can get away with it and most people can't. It could be used so that the speed and cheapness of transactions increases. Or you might have to eat the bugs. And if you're post something anti-government on Twitter, you might get docked $1,000 out of your next paycheck. Who knows, right? It could be anywhere in between, but it kind of sounds crazy. But at the same time, again, you just got to look at the white papers for these CBDCs, right? If you type in what's it called, digital pound white paper into Google, you can pull the white paper, you can read through it. There will be a section about product lock-in and time stamping and expiring for expiries for savings. It's all in there. You can read it, and to my mind, they don't write it in there for no reason, right? It's at least they want the option to add it later in life if they so desire. So yeah, man, super weird times. Hopefully gold can go to 20K an ounce first, and then who cares? Although, I don't know.
Yeah. It's the interesting thing about that, when we talk about our assets and bits and pieces, then I think you picked up on it earlier on. If they do this mega print that possibly they could do, the inflation rate on that's going to be ridiculous. 18 months down the line, if I've done my homework right, roughly how it works. So, if they did it this year, next year, where are we, 26? By 28, God knows what the cost of living, if nothing else has changed, God knows what the cost of living will be like then. So, I often think to myself, it'd be really cool if gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever, is worth X amount. But if you can't trade in it, you've got to convert it into something, and what you're converting it into. So the value of it is only of any use if you're going to convert it back into your currency, and that's of only any value if it's got any. I know what you think about that. Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I have thought about this. Because the worst case scenario is you do everything right. You position yourself in the right assets. The right assets do insane returns. You become rich on paper or a wealthy asset holder. And then we get a CBDC system and you can't even withdraw the money, right? Like your only option is to say, I want to extend my kitchen and then hope you can find a builder willing to accept a gold coin or zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in exchange for remodeling or extending your kitchen, right? And that may or may not be a thing, right? Maybe people will be super hungry for some money outside of the system. Maybe you'll have builders queuing up to extend your kitchen in exchange for an ounce of gold. Or maybe they won't give a shit, right? Maybe they won't. And then this is kind of like the worst case scenario for the asset holders is you do everything right. You have all this discipline, you invest, you take the risk, you sacrifice in other areas of your life, you become rich on paper, and then you can't cash out. So that's like the worst possible case scenario. I would hope that as tyranny increases, if we assume it does, right? If we assume CBDCs are coming and we assume they're also going to be tyrannical, that will probably drive demand for money outside of the system. So I would imagine the more tyrannical and the harder it is to save money and the more penalized you are for having any kind of wealth at all inside of the system, the more people would look for an exit and therefore the more demand there would be for kind of black market gold or Bitcoin, if you want to call it that. But from
Or
a practical standpoint, it may be kind of difficult. Now, on the flip side of that, that is the worst case scenario. And it may be that these CBDCs do not come with that level of tyranny. Maybe they are essentially undetectable for your average Joe, right? And they just continue using Apple Pay, except it's a CBDC instead of a fiat currency. And maybe it doesn't come with any of those horrible restrictive timestamps and time locks and product locks and all of that kind of stuff. In which case you can cash out and be rich and enjoy your life for taking the risk and making the sacrifice. But for me personally, it's lose-lose. No, wait, win-win. You can't lose. What am I talking about?
I have no idea, dude. Could you
Let me
just
try
go?
again.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's a win-win situation, right? You can't you can't lose.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is if I do nothing now, and by do nothing, I mean I acquire zero assets, if I just carry on, right, we are eventually going to end up in a CBDC system. And if the CBDCs are tyrannical, then I'm screwed because I have to eat the bugs and be happy. If the CBDCs are not tyrannical, well, I'm probably still screwed because the inflation is going to be insane, right? And my purchasing power is going to have gone down and I'm not going to have any assets and I'm not going to have any wealth and any way to exit the system. On the flip side, if I invest my assets now and we move to CBDCs without the tyranny, then I've won, right? I'll be in the, in the have yachts rather than the have nots. And if I invest and be disciplined and buy the assets now, and we move towards a future with the tyrannical CBDCs, well, at least I've got some assets, right? And I may or may not be able to cash them out. I may or may not be able to find a local builder willing to swap his labor for my gold coin or whatever. But that's probably a better situation to be in than if I just do nothing and end up in that same place. So for me, it's worth taking the risk.
100%. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that's what I was
nothing to
trying to
lose.
say. Nothing to lose.
There is nothing. Yeah,
I think I said it was a lose-lose or
Yeah.
something.
And the thing that I often think about is I always look at my life in the environment that I'm in, i.e., I'm live in England. Now, possibly, if it goes down the route that, oh God, I've done all these assets, it doesn't look really good. I've got a chance to get out and go to somewhere else that has and does have belief in that system that maybe we like. That I think is really important because you can up sticks. and move on and go to maybe an economy or in a part of the world that believes in a different way of life. So that's an interesting one to think about. You're not just tied to one place. You can move, possibly, if the incentive is out there, obviously.
Yeah, you can do.
Mm.
I'm
I know.
inclined to think that you can't put humans in cages.
No.
And by that, I mean, Nigeria is like my favorite example of this. They had like a really corrupt central bank and a currency crisis and all of this stuff. And they started to use, do you remember back in the day they had pay as you go phone cards?
It did, yeah.
And you would take a card in and ask the news agent to put 10 or 20 quid on it for credit. And then it would transfer across to your phone so you could make a few phone calls or send a few text messages. They became currency in Nigeria for a while
Mm.
because, believe it or not, those phone cards with credit on satisfied enough of the requirements for a currency to actually function as currency. So, worst case scenario, if somebody gave you a phone card with 20 quid of credit on, it always had an underlying value because even if nobody else wanted it, you could always put that credit on your phone and call someone. So for a while, they were trading phone currency or phone credit on
Yeah.
these top up cards. And that to me speaks to the um, intuition and the innovation of humans. Like that's what I mean by you can't put humans in cages. They have a historical precedent for not tolerating tyranny. They will
Yeah.
always find humans will always find a workaround. They'll always figure out a way. And that's what gives me confidence that even if we get to the worst case scenario, people are still going to want gold and Bitcoin or even top up phone cards, which obviously don't really exist anymore. But humans will find some way of transacting outside of the system if it's beneficial to them.
Yeah. Which is, dare I say this, which is possibly why 2020 was such a valuable data collecting thing to experience going forward. Because
Yeah, I think
that really proved how you could keep, possibly, if you use a bit of imagination around it, how you can keep people in a cage.
yeah, I think more people are awake and more people are stronger than ever before as a result of that.
Yeah.
It did a lot of damage, and I certainly wouldn't wish it on the world.
No.
And there are a lot of people that suffered irreparable damage from that,
Yeah.
whether it was their business, whether it was the loss of loved ones, whether it was being chronically ill or suffering side effects from certain things, uh, or whether it was just the impact of inflation that made a lot of people generally poorer. A lot of damage was done, and it was horrific and frankly unnecessary, I think. But most people came out of that stronger in some way, shape, or form. And I think that we as humanity are likely more stronger and more awake and more knowledgeable and more aware than we ever were prior to that event. So I don't want to say it was net positive because that seems insensitive
Sure.
and I'm not even sure if I truly agree with it. It's like that saying ignorance is bliss,
Yeah.
right? Did we need to have people suffer in the way they suffered? Did we need to have the world go through that? Was it worth it? I don't know. It was worth it for me personally, but would I wish that on the rest of the world over again? No, not at all. Right? Was it handled extremely poorly? I think it was. I think it was handled extremely poorly. I think there was egregious abuses of power all along the way. And it seemed like a lot of suffering was caused in many different ways that was totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
And with that said, there's every cloud has a silver lining. And the silver lining, like I said, is I think people that have made it through are stronger than ever, are more aware than ever. And that's good. But that doesn't take away from the darkness that was those 4 years, right? By any way, shape, or form.
No, it doesn't. It's yeah, it's a very interesting time. I think psychologically it will be reflected back in history at some point. I really do believe that because I think that fundamentally there's been major changes to society since that time. I really
Yeah,
do.
entrepreneurship skyrocketed, right? Quit their jobs and went on to do their own things. Um, there was a lot of changes. A lot of businesses went broke. A lot of people, like I said, quit their jobs and went on to pursue their dreams and blah blah blah. Um, I do you know what I worry about? You just saying that we'll look back at this time later in life or whatever. We'll look back at this as a historical moment.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree we will. But the thing that concerns me is that it may get contorted. Like I wonder if my children will come home one day and say, "Daddy, we learned about the pandemic." I'm like, okay, what did you learn? And then I'll be like, wow, that was not my experience. Right? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that it will be contorted in a way that, yeah, is different from reality. But I guess time will tell. Maybe I'm too cynical. I think I probably am a bit too paranoid and a bit too cynical sometimes, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's the bubbles we live in. Can make us like that. We become a part of our consumption, don't we? Really do. And social media is terrible for that, I believe. And I'm the world's worst for it sometimes. I can really get myself wrapped up in a crazy tiny little world that is just not of any reflection to the majority of the real world when I go out there. But we're all susceptible to it. Dude, it's scary but frightening. Scary but frightening. No, I haven't even had a drink. Two things mean the same, don't they? Scary but exciting. The tech side of it really excites me. There's a lot of good that can come out of all of this. I think we are probably, if we really have time, which no one's really seriously got, if we really have time to really think about it, I think we've dug such a big hole going down that dystopian route anyway, and given away so much over a short period of time. And I think if we've recognised it, then we'll probably look at life a little bit more differently. Possibly, that's my view going forward. But I'm quite excited about it all.
Wild time's going to be fun.
It's nuts, dude. Right, we're gonna just slightly go off curve here.
Okay, okay.
You said something right at the beginning. You mentioned two people, and that was Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Oh, my two favorite people.
But it's really funny because we used to have conversations when we used to sort of go out there a little bit, trying to work out where governments would sit with the elites, you know, the billionaires, the big banking organizations, and we always saw that as a difference. There was the government that was us, I call it the peasants. Then you've got the government level, and everyone looks at the government as the government's really pulling the strings. Da, 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 da. But we used to say, like, well, no, not really. But the people in real power sit above. And I know you've gone through a pyramid of whatever as well. Maybe you want to go into that. But what do you think about all of a sudden now we've got a major US powerhouse with one of those elite billionaires in conjunction with a government figure? That's not really been seen before. What do you think's going on there?
Honestly, I don't know.
It's
I
weird.
don't. But one thing I do find is hilarious is I've been very consistent in saying I don't trust anyone, right? And something that has been fascinating to me is when I voice an opinion like this on the YouTube channel. Do you remember a couple of months ago, they were talking about potentially auditing Fort Knox
Yes.
and going to check to see how much gold was in there? And I put a bunch of Twitter posts out and I talked about it on YouTube. And I was like, guys, they're never going in there, bro. They're never getting in there. And what was fascinating was people, largely speaking, didn't just disagree. They were accusing me of being propagandized or brainwashed by the BBC News or the UK government or whatever. They were like, yeah, you clearly are an Englishman that hates Elon or whatever. And the funny thing about that is, number one, that's not true, right? And I mean, not only is that not true, I don't watch any of that stuff, as you know, right? I don't watch any TV or BBC News or any of that stuff. It upsets my spirit. But I thought what was fascinating about that was if you really think about it, if you take somebody like that that's making those types of comments, they don't trust Biden, they don't trust Kamala, they don't trust Rishi Sunak, they don't trust. Right, there's this whole heap of people they don't trust, and they do trust Elon and Trump. And then for me, I'm saying almost the exact same thing. I'm saying I don't trust Biden, I don't trust Kamala, I don't trust Rishi Sunak, but I also don't trust a couple more people, Elon and Trump, right? I don't trust anyone. It's not that different. It's just I haven't elected Elon or Trump or whoever to be my savior. I just haven't. I just think anyone that can get up on that stage and on TV and next to the president and sit in the White House, I think anyone that can do that is probably all part of the same club, and therefore I don't trust them. Now, if somehow we get into the future and they turn out to be the real saviors, I'll hold my hands up and say I was wrong not to trust them. But I find it fascinating that so many people have been almost in need of a father figure or a savior or a guardian angel. And they've really kind of latched themselves on to these Elon and Trump type characters as if everything was going to pot, but now all of a sudden we got Elon and Trump and everything's fine. And I found this fascinating because to me, you can't trust any of them. They're all the same. There's all two sides of the same coin. And again, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And we'll see later in life. But I just can't put my faith in these kind of people. I think anyone that can get on those stages is probably in some way, shape, or form all part of the same club. And maybe there's two sides of the same club and they don't agree on every point. But generally speaking, I don't think we can count on any of these people to save us. And I think they're always going to act in their own billionaire interests to benefit themselves and their status and their net worth. And that probably is always going to come first, and the people will come second. So yeah, I find the whole thing kind of strange. I also think it's quite a shift to have like essentially a celebrity like Elon suddenly as the right hand man for the president of America. That seems kind of weird because yeah, he's smart. Like, I'm not trying to say he's not a genius, and sure, he's contributed things like Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company and all these. You know, he's clearly an incredibly gifted, incredibly rare type of human. But that doesn't qualify him to be the right hand man to the president, in my opinion. Right? He's a scientist and an engineer. I wouldn't say that makes him good at politics. And I kind of think the biggest problem with all of this stuff is they are all guilty of the same type of thinking. And that thinking is, I've made a bunch of money, I'm powerful and full of status, and therefore my opinion means more than everyone else's, right? It's no different to Bill Gates, right? Take Bill Gates as an example. Becomes a multi-billionaire, clearly a gifted, intelligent individual, and then he decides, I want to make my own decisions for what I think is best for humanity. Okay? And we can go into that or not go into that, but he makes a bunch of decisions based on his subjective billionaire perspective of what is good for humanity and how he wants to shape it. If you think about it, Elon's not doing anything different. He is another billionaire with a lot of status that has decided, I'm a billionaire with a lot of status and I want to make my own decisions for what I think is best for humanity, right? We could all do this. We could all say, Uncle Andy, what do you think is best for humanity? Right? Hey, Camel, what do you think is best for humanity? But we're all flawed humans and none of us have the right answers. And for me, this is where the biggest problem comes, because if you start to say, well, Elon must know better than Bill Gates, right? Or Elon must know better than whoever else, you're still putting your faith in a human, in a flawed human being that is likely going to be acting in his own self-interest, because that's what all billionaires do. So the whole thing for me is I don't trust any of them. I don't trust any of them at all. And I think Elon probably got excited by the opportunity. He was probably like, oh yeah, I can be Trump's henchman and I can be his right-hand man and I can try my best to save this system and I can try my best to fix the money and fix the government and whatever else. But all of a sudden, the stuff he was doing seems to be fizzling out and he seems to be having less and less involvement. And I do wonder if he's kind of realized he can't fix it, right? The whole system is broken, the whole system is controlled, and they're probably not going to be able to kind of make the system better. The system is probably going to go in the way it's going, and probably no one, including Elon, can stop that. So yeah, man, I find the whole thing kind of weird, but I think the best course of action is to assume he's not going to help. And then if you're wrong, you're wrong. Pleasant surprise, right? But I don't think we should be clinging on to the idea that because Elon and Trump are here, everything's going to be okay.
Dude, I can't. I love the way you very eloquently put it across. Yeah, 100% behind you. I sum it up very quickly sometimes when I look at all this, and like when I'm talking to my son or anyone in my family, my other son, my daughter, whatever, my wife, I always sit there and go, okay, ask yourself one question: is this person going to do something in this world that's going to change your life personally? And do you think they got up this morning with you in mind to make that change better for you personally? And the answer is always no. Always no. Always, always no. Whereas if I said to my son or daughter, Dad's going to do this for you, and I'm going to make it happen for you so you see that change within the scope of what I can do personally. And then they go, okay, I believe that. That's a massive difference. And it's empowering that you yourself is more important than a disconnection of someone that has no identity with you personally at all. And so that should help you then personally look at it and go, okay, the most important person in the world is me and my responsibilities that I like to take on. And regardless of who's getting themselves into power, who's getting themselves onto my screen that I look at, my phone that I look at, the news that I look at on the TV, they've really not got my best interests at heart. I've got my best interests at heart, and it's down to me to work out within the system that people are developing to try and make that as good as I can on a day-to-day basis. Sounds boring.
Not boring. Makes perfect sense.
It does, doesn't it? Which is why when I sit there and listen to what you put it across so much more eloquently than I do, but I sit there and yeah, sod it, it's just really interesting. So what, Elon Musk, he's doing it for his own reasons. He's got to have his own agenda, like most people have got an agenda, whether it's good, bad, ugly, for his family, for, I don't know, whatever he believes in, or whether it's because he loves Trump, probably doesn't. I have no idea. I'm not even qualified to even say he does or he doesn't, because I don't know the guy, but he's definitely not got my best interest at heart. Just like the Prime Minister hasn't, just like the Inland Revenue hasn't, anyone working at the Inland Revenue does not get up in the morning and just say, well, I wonder how Andy's doing today. I wonder how Camel's doing today. I wonder how we can help him or really piss them off. It's just, you're not nothing. What you are is an identity of information.
Yeah, I think
That's all we've become.
I think they just look at us like cattle in the way a farmer would look at his cattle.
Hundred
Like that's
percent,
it.
100%, 100%. God, this is getting depressing, isn't it?
Don't know. Is it?
It's real though, isn't it? And it's so real, and I get told off a lot. Oh God, you're so depressing, and I say, yeah, but it's not. This is the real world. I can't live in this fantasy of the next believer that comes into politics or whatever is going to change my life, because within a couple of years we're all saying the same thing. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Oh, can't wait for the next party to come in. And it's just like, what are you wasting your time on that for? It's interesting, and it produces content if you're a content creator. But in true reality, nothing's really changed. Just over time, really. It's fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating. And that's why I can sit there and have that opinion of how easy it is to be manipulated through time and through technology, because we're so dissolved into someone needs to help us. No, we can help ourselves. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I call it the pseudo father. Oh my goodness.
God,
Oh,
what was that?
Let me try again.
Yes, please.
It's just embarrassing.
No, it's not.
I call it the pseudo father figure. And I think I've made several posts on Twitter about this. I'm like, people need to stop kneeling down with their arms in the air, asking for their pseudo father figure to come and save them, right? Like a little toddler, like a little emotional baby that would fall over and hurt their knee and then hold their arms in the air and cry, waiting for their dad to come and scoop them up and tell them everything's going to be okay. And I think that's what a lot of people do with Elon or Trump or whoever it is. They kind of assume that there's some guy that's going to pick them up when they're down, and you're in trouble. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, dude. I just made me jump because my son just come into the room.
Oh,
And I
okay,
didn't
okay.
realise he was there. You all right, mate? Have a good time. I'll see you later, yeah? Give me a call. Sorry, dude.
No, that's no worries. Yeah. So I just think a lot of people kind of suffer with this complex of thinking that there is some guy that's going to come and save them. And I think that if you make those kind of assumptions, you're probably going to suffer, to be honest. Because I don't really think that these guys are going to come and scoop you up and tell you everything's going to be okay. So, but I know you kind of mentioned it sounds depressing or doom and gloom or whatever, but I'm actually extremely optimistic here for the next few years. That doesn't mean there won't be some tough times, because I'm sure there will. But I think for people with even a little bit of financial literacy, have a really, really, really good opportunity here to change their life trajectory, to change their wealth. And, you know, you just have to look back at the C19 era. They printed a bunch of money, and people either got a lot poorer or a lot richer. And regardless of whether you got poorer or richer, that same opportunity is knocking at the door again. It's not far off now. Excuse me. And so I remain kind of cautiously optimistic that things are going to be okay, especially if you're an asset holder, especially if you can DCA some amount of Bitcoin or gold. Um, no, there's no amount too small, right? It's all relative. The only wrong allocation is zero.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that opportunity is massive. I really do. And then other than that, you can kind of just ignore it, right? Just do the basics right. Set up a 10 quid a week DCA into Bitcoin or whatever you're going to do. And then sit back and just let the thing unfold and go and enjoy your life and lay in the sun and smoke some cigarettes or whatever, whatever you need to pass the time, right? Spend the time with your family, do whatever you got to do. But do so knowing that if you do the basics right and you accumulate small amounts of these assets over time, then you're going to be in a much better position than if you just do nothing.
Yes. And fundamentally, you'll probably surprise yourself because even though we talk about it a lot, I still think that this little echo chamber of all of what you do, I do, all my interconnections and community bits that I connect with are such a tiny percentage of the total population out there. I think you're categorically totally correct on what you just said, because you will have an advantage over the masses, over the herd, because the herd has no idea what's going on other than Elon, China, Russia, and it's all terrible. Trump, X, Facebook, TikTok, all this stuff, all this crap that's going on in the different countries. But us that just realized that we could make a little bit of a difference and taking that little bit of and I'm not sure it probably is a little bit of a risk because no one knows the outcome, but it's a very good educated risk that for once we've got an opportunity at our level to, if all the dots dot and the T's cross and the moon aligns and the stars are right, we've got an opportunity to make a difference for our generations to come and the generations that are going to follow it. It's fascinating. I think I've said this to you before. I'm guilty of this totally. I have a tendency, the more I stay around my echo chamber of what I like to consume through social media, my YouTube, and the Discord groups, and going, following those of people. You have a tendency to make that the psychological real world, but it's not. It really isn't. It's just such a tiny percentage, but it feels like it's the real world. But that's powerful. It is powerful.
Speaking of powerful, I watched a video on YouTube the other day. I forget who it was by. It was a guy I hadn't seen before. But his idea was that you could hypothetically pick up one extra shift a week in a petrol station, a gas station, right? And you would earn for doing your 8 to 10 hours, you'd earn like $80. And most people would say, yeah, well, why do I want to earn $10 an hour at a gas station once a week? But he made a spreadsheet and showed the compound interest for Bitcoin, right? And he's like, take your $80 that you pick up on a Sunday shift, put it all into Bitcoin, right? Just average it in. You turn up on Sunday, you work 8 hours, you put $80 into Bitcoin, you repeat this process every week. And it showed that if you assume a CAGR of 30 to 50%, that instead of you earn $10 an hour for 8 hours to produce your $80, it actually works out more like you're earning 70 to $80 an hour over the long term. And so his argument was go and pick up an extra shift, take all of that money and put it in Bitcoin. And in 4 or 5 years' time, for doing one Sunday shift a week, you're going to be sat on around 350K worth of Bitcoin. And I was like, this is pretty crazy if you really think about it. But it kind of inspired me to start to think maybe I should be running some DCAs on the side because I've kind of been a bit lazy about that. I know you're a proponent of buying every week, right? I can see by the way you're nodding, you still buy every week. Um, but
Every
yeah, I'm
day,
thinking,
dude. Every day.
yeah. So I'm thinking, I think people really underestimate the opportunity that's in front of them. There is no amount that's too small. Everything is relative. If you've got £1,000 a week, put £1,000 a week in. But if you've got £10 a week, that's fine too, right? £10 a month is better than nothing. It doesn't matter what it is. But the if we're even remotely right about what's coming, then even £10 a week is going to make a dramatic difference. And the guy that made the video was also, excuse me, was also pointing out that if you don't want to pick up a shift at a gas station, most people can free up £80 a month just by eating less takeaway, right? Or canceling Netflix and Amazon Prime subscriptions. Or, everyone could probably free up some money. And instead of thinking about it in terms of its face value, like, oh, I just saved 80 quid a month, right? Think of it in terms of if it's 80 quid a month now, in 4, 5, 6 years' time, it's going to be a lot more than 80. It's going to be more like 800. So that DCA is incredibly powerful. And I kind of forgot about this because I guess I've been too comfortable for too long or something. But it's made me realize, and I was talking about this in the YouTube channel this week, that we're going to start a gold DCA using the indicator. And I think we're going to run a Bitcoin one as well. And then just track it and see, because you don't have to be a trader to benefit from this. You don't have to really have any technical skill set. You can just get paid and buy some Bitcoin or get paid and buy some gold. And if you do that consistently enough and allow it 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to be in a drastically different position to where we are now. So no matter how doom
Massively.
and gloom it may seem, doing a few of the basics correct is going to make a massive difference.
It's using your head, it gets back to what I was saying earlier. You've got to take that opportunity to do something yourself to make a difference because no one's going to do it for you. Simple as you might be lucky, but I can assure you, probably for most people, they're not going to be that lucky. So you have to do things and it for yourself. And it's silly little things like that are so powerful. It's really interesting that you mentioned that because I had a chat with someone this week. We have a chat. I won't mention them, but so said, "Oh, what do you reckon on Bitcoin at the moment?" I said, "Well, what do you mean? What do you reckon on Bitcoin?" You know. So we had a conversation. He said, "Yeah, I don't know. It's not doing anything. It's boring." I said, "Yeah, it's fine. That's what it does sometimes." And I think what was he saying? Oh, I really want to put some more money into it, but no, I don't want to bung £1,000 into it and that. And I said, well, you want to get some more, don't you? And yeah. And what are you waiting for? And yeah, I'm not sure. It's a lot of money just to put in one here. I said, why aren't you DCAing a tiny amount every day and just forget about it? Because you've never got to worry about, oh, when's the right time? When's the wrong time? Um, and he went, I didn't think of that. Anyway, I spoke to him a couple of days later. I said, DCA. And he said, yeah, I don't even think about it. I set it all up. It's done. I said, there you go. And it's exactly what you just said. That's really weird. Hello?
Hello.
Sorry, mate. That's
Yeah, sorry.
really
Yeah,
weird.
no, yeah. The people underestimate the power of DCA, and I've even been guilty of this myself. That's why I was saying I'm thinking about restarting it. Um, yeah, just do the basics right. Just stick to it consistently. Because a lot of people mess up their DCAs. I don't know if you know this. A lot of people like they make a rookie mistake. They start buying, the price goes down a bit. They buy again, price goes down a bit. Buy again, the price goes down a bit, and they go, "Oh, well, I'll just wait." Right? I'll just wait. And if you do that, you kind of mess with the mathematical magic that occurs. You got to keep going and you got to be consistent. It's the consistency that enables you to get your average price down so that when the market turns around again, you're back into profit. But a lot of people mess that up. Um, but yeah, I've been thinking this lately. I've been thinking we should maybe start a little side hustle, DCA gold, a little side hustle, DCA Bitcoin, and we'll review it in like 2028 or something. And I bet people will be kind of surprised.
It's it's scarily surprising. Like I was saying to the person I was speaking to, I said you'll be absolutely if depending on what you can afford. But even if you was putting £10 a day, £10 a week, that 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 very quickly turns into £100. That very quickly turns into £1,000 over time, obviously, because if you start forgetting about that and start to be busy to earn some more money, maybe to invest or whatever you want to do, you forget about that. But it just, before you know it, we all know that, crikey, we're in the fourth month of the year already. So if you was DCAing or set up a DCA system, even if it was £1 a day, which you can do with Bitcoin, obviously, that's very easy to do. That just equates and just grows so quickly over time. And it just turns into more money to £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, 10 grand, 15 grand. And it just happens. It's so powerful. It really is. But it's a massive discipline. And you've got to be in a position to be able to do it. But it's took me a long time to get my head around it all, I must admit.
Yeah, the real key is time. You just got to do it for enough time. Your got to allow yourself to think longer term. Everyone kind of thinks, "Oh, I want to put a grand in this week and be a millionaire next week," and you just set yourself up for failure. But if you can say to yourself, "Okay, I'm going to stick to a plan. I'm going to DCA every week for the next 5 years," can't really lose. At least not historically. There's first time for everything, but yeah, but sticking to the basics probably going to be just fine.
Without a doubt. One thing that didn't happen, dude, I'm going to really take it well out there.
Wait, can we go for a bathroom break? I'm dying.
Dude, yeah, let me park because I am as well.
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
So that's cool. Dude, I was while we was just having a quick comfort break, I was just sitting there thinking we need to talk about this stuff more because whenever we do, we always get a nice little uptrend in Bitcoin for some reason. Don't know why. It's really weird. But it's really interesting. We've got another little trend line break today. So I'm hoping, I doubt it, because we had one, I think it was on the 2nd of April, and it just come back down again. But yeah, it's looking a little bit stronger than it has done for a little while,
It's not broken on my chart.
hasn't it?
Not on mine, no.
No, it
It's
hasn't.
right into it at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I've just got a trend line working down from the top.
I mean, it probably depends on which exchange you're using. I know it's broken out on Binance.
Oh God, I'm just on Trading View on Bitcoin versus US dollar.
Yeah,
Bitstamp,
but
is
have a
it?
look. Bitstamp. Oh
Bitstamp.
no, yeah, I use Bitstamp as well, and it's not broken out. Not according to my trend line, anyway.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yours is probably a lot more professional and precise than mine.
Maybe.
But
Give it some time. Give it some time.
did you
It's gonna
did
waddle.
you
I
did you
reckon it's
yesterday?
gonna go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, did you yesterday? Did it hit your trend line?
No, it's hit it for the first time today. It's literally right pressed up against it now. But we're only halfway through the cycle, so we're probably going to need a little bit more time before it can truly go. But
Yeah,
I am very optimistic here that we're going to be at 150K by the middle of the year.
makes a lot of sense.
That would be nice, wouldn't it, eh? What are you going to buy? Are you going to treat yourself?
As dude, not publicly while I'm recording.
Okay, say less. Say less.
Um, and I hate saying that because it makes me sound like a complete prick. But you know why. Right, we've got about what 15, 20 minutes left. That's flown by, dude, isn't it?
Yeah, it has, yeah.
Do we going even farther way out there? We said that we was expecting something alien wise in the first quarter of this year. Didn't happen, dude, did it?
No, it
Oh,
didn't. It didn't happen. It looked like it might. Did you notice there was all this like stuff in the news and drones and whatever else, and it looked like it might, but yeah, so far invalidated on that setup.
yeah, it's boring, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not really wishing for it to happen. I'm not discounting it yet, but but yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see.
What did come on? Like we really take it out. Ah, the other thing I wanted to that's something that I haven't spoken to you about for ages, and you did mention it on one of the two Swigs and a Sig when you was talking about the pyramid, and you was looking at different levels. It was really out there, and you was explaining that there's a name for different people or different groups of people at different levels, all the way to the top.
The Council of 13.
Bang on, bang on.
What of it?
Do you still poke around that?
I do and I don't. Not in a while. To be honest, I've been actually surprisingly, I've been quite switched off of all of that stuff for some time now. When I first got the channel, as you know, because you were there right from the start, it was quite heavily focused on like the reset stuff and the occult stuff and blah blah blah. And we touch on it from time to time, and people seem to really really like it. But generally speaking, I'm at the moment I'm just focused on trading. I'm just focused on the charts and focused on getting that right. I think when I first started the channel, I didn't have any members or anything that hadn't been created yet. So I didn't really have any responsibility, so to speak. I could just talk about whatever I want. And now, since we've got a bunch of members, I am focusing largely on making sure they're positioned right for this move. So that occupies a lot more of my time, and therefore I have less time to go down these weird rabbit holes. But I also have somewhat lost interest in it. I kind of like did been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and I don't really care too much about it anymore. For whatever reason, it's just not been piquing my interest of late.
It's strange, isn't it? Because I can be, I can relate to that with a lot of my spiritual journey and bits and pieces. And I go through these phases where I just sit there and I just think, how much relevance is it having on to what I'm trying to achieve on a day to day, week to week level? And it becomes psychologically, I begin to sit there and think, there is no relevance. And then that sort of just goes away, goes away, goes away, goes away, goes away, until for me, I have one little thing might happen. I might be out and about and I just experience something and I think, oh God, that was a little bit of a kick. I've forgotten all about that sort of thing. And then it just sort of just gives me that little bit more of a lift. And just as a I don't know about you. In your experience, you sort of go through little spells in life where something can be relevant to what you're trying to do or trying to work out, and then it just goes away, and then it comes back, and it comes back in a different way at another point of time. Um, have you experienced that with anything really during your course of your life?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
But I think for me, it's almost kind of like a learning process. You kind of go down these rabbit holes and you learn some things, but then eventually you've learned it. And I find that you there are plenty of people out there on YouTube and all sorts of places that it becomes their entire paradigm. That's all they do day in, day out is stress about, oh, we're going to have to eat the bugs and we're going to have to own nothing and be happy. And oh, there's this elite group of people that are abusing kids and whatever's going on. And I'm not trying to say that doesn't happen. Like, I'm aware of that stuff. But I just don't find it particularly useful to dwell on it on a daily basis. It's like I'm aware of it, I understand, but for the most part, I don't think it's conducive to me being a happy human being and enjoying my life. So I kind of like, yeah, I know it, I know about it, and from time to time, I go through these phases where I go down these rabbit holes again and brush up on that kind of stuff. But like I said, generally speaking, I've just got almost, it kind of sounds silly almost, but I've got better things to do, than worry about that stuff all the time.
You do have would I've always sensed that you've got a certain, oh, I don't know how to categorize it, religious, spiritual aspect to you, though. Do you have a tendency to still have that as part of your life, or does that just get worked into the background while you're concentrating on doing whatever you're doing?
No, that's definitely a big part of me. I very much believe that I am or we all are, not me, but we all are a fragment of God coming here to discover novelty inside of this weird construct and simulation. I live my life that way, and I genuinely am convinced that our thoughts create our reality. And I think that's a big part of why I don't tend to focus so much on the doom and gloom, because I've got better things to put my energy and intention on. And if I put those energy and intention on things that I actually want, then I get to have the life that I want and I get to enjoy the experiences more and that kind of thing. So I definitely think it's important to understand how that stuff works, but I think you can become consumed by it. And I think it can, in a lot of cases, I think it can totally consume people. And it makes them. I can think of a few YouTubers, for example, that I watched day in, day out during the pandemic. And these were kind of like the types of contrarian, free thinking type channels that were exposing these kind of things that were going on during the pandemic and looking at it in a different light or an opposing light to the mainstream narrative. And I watched a lot of these channels and I was like, yeah, I resonate with this and I understand, and that's really important to know. But what I noticed was over time, these people often, because it's their job to produce content on that kind of thing, they become consumed by it and a little bit bitter towards life and a little bit angry at the world. And for me, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be bitter at the world. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be consumed by the darkness. There is no light without dark, and there's no dark without light. But that doesn't mean I have to focus on the darkness all the time. And I guess you could argue that it's kind of burying your head in the sand and ignoring it to a certain extent. But for me personally, I could spend my whole life down these rabbit holes and really get nowhere. Or I can be aware of that and focus on the things that I want to experience, right? Focus on family, focus on doing my YouTube channel, focus on trading and the things that I enjoy. And of late, I mean, it's raining today for the first time in a week and a half. But just as an example, the past week and a half, we've had nothing but sunshine. And it's been beautiful, man. It's been beautiful laying in the sun, getting a suntan. I've gone up a few shades of brown since. And yeah, it's just been really nice. And for me, that's what life is about, taking the small moments, laying out there with my dog, taking my wife or my mum out for dinner. Took my mum out for lunch a couple of days ago for Winston's birthday as well. And for me, that's a better use of my energy and intention rather than being sucked down these kind of rabbit holes of darkness and despair. So, I mean, I try to keep an awareness of that. I try to keep an understanding of that. But I also am aware that that stuff can consume you and become your entire reality. And if it does, then as I said earlier, it kind of, in my experience, tends to make people kind of bitter and hateful. And I don't think that is the way we're intended to live. So I, to a certain extent, try to, I wouldn't say ignore it, but just kind of focus on other things.
Amen to that, dude. You always put these things so eloquently across. What did you say about a higher power giving you the opportunity to something novelty on this? What were those words you said?
I don't
You,
know. That was pure rum. That was pure rum talk.
it's so it's
uh,
so beautifully put there.
I don't know exactly what I said, but along the lines of, I think we're all fragments of God. I think that's what we are. I think that
That's it.
each of us have a soul, and I think that soul is a fragment of God. And I believe that we are here seeking novelty, meaning newness, new
Yeah.
experiences. I think that's the entire point of this construct, is to come here and have new experiences, novelty. So,
Okay, I've got a great question with that we can
yeah.
just fill out the next 10 minutes. Do you believe, or from your experience, from what you just said there, those new experiences, do you believe that you can gain that unique, lovely new experience to learn from what I call the real world or this world, the social media world? Or
Sorry, can you clarify that? What do you mean?
when you say about you're given the chance to come and discover newness in this world, do you think that that discovery is more within the real world outside of the virtual world that a lot of us spend a lot of time in? Or do you think there's some of that newness that you can experience within the virtual world too?
I don't know about in the virtual world, but the way I think of it is, if you imagine there's like a heaven, just for the sake of explaining this,
Yeah.
and in that heaven, everything is perfect all of the time, right? Everyone is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and everything is perfect. Well, in that environment, as good as it may be, there is no scope for development because everybody is all seeing, all knowing, and everything is perfect all of the time. And so I think that the whole point of this construct, this world where we all come down and have this weird experience, I think the point of it is to seek novelty and experience, like newness and randomness and chaos, because that enables us to create these kind of random, chaotic events and experience things that would otherwise would be unattainable to this perfection in this kind of heaven environment. And so that to me is what this whole thing is about. I think it's just kind of seeking new experiences in order to add to perfection. And that adding to perfection is a weird thing because you say, well, how can, if it's perfect, how can you add to perfection? But the only way you can add to perfection is to create randomness and chaos. But there can't be randomness and chaos in perfection. So you have to create this kind of fallen realm, this kind of simulated environment, and allow everything, everything from perfection to horrific events and everything in between. And that enables enough chaos and randomness to kind of find new development and new experience. And it's within that new development and experience that I believe the creator adds to its own perfection. It increases the pool of perfection. Because if it didn't have a fallen construct full of randomness and chaos, then it would just be in a homeostatic environment, right? It would just be constant. Everything's perfect all of the time, and there's no need to grow or develop because everything's already perfect. It's kind of like you have to put stress on things in order to force growth. Like a lobster, a lobster, it grows until it becomes uncomfortable. And then eventually the discomfort of the fact that it's overgrown its shell forces it to shed its shell and grow a new one. And I think that's kind of the same thing that we get from this environment. It's like if we didn't come here to this fallen construct to seek novelty, then we would never grow to the point of discomfort. And if we never grew to the point of discomfort, we would never grow a new shell. And therefore, we would never grow in general. So that's kind of my interpretation of it. I don't know if it's right. It could be right and it could be like 100 degrees wrong. Who knows? But that's kind of how I've always thought of it.
It feels right, dude. It makes sense. It makes a not a, I don't know, here I go. It doesn't, sometimes it can not make a mind sense, but it definitely makes a heart sense, which is another conversation altogether. But I know what you know what I mean by that. And when you say the construct of this world, would you would you expand that into this is a big universe thing, or is this just an Earth construct thing, or that this is what goes on throughout the whole universe?
Well, I don't know. I can't know. My guess would be that this probably isn't the only one. I don't know why you would just make one, right? You probably make a bunch and then have different conditions and variables in each one of the simulations. That would be my guess. But I don't know. I can't possibly know.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It is because then you can sit there and try and work out again, like you just lose yourself in all of this stuff and it doesn't become relevant to day, but for some reason it kind of does. And I don't know whether that's just because it's interesting conversation or it has got some sort of relevance deeply within us all. But sometimes I sit there and I think, okay, is this place the only place that's simulated to experience this? Where else, what else can be experienced anywhere else that isn't that unique on Earth? It's fascinating when you actually really think about it, but how relevant is it in day to day life? I don't know.
I don't know how relevant it is for day-to-day life. You seem to be able to ignore it with no consequence. But I also think if you pay attention to it, then to a certain degree, you can manipulate it in your favor. That seems to be my experience, at least.
That horrible word, manipulate.
Well, manipulate just means to bend and change, right? It doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Yeah, that's very
Like you can
true.
manipulate plasticine in your hand.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be manipulating somebody in a dark way.
Yeah, but that's the yin and yang, isn't it? That's the bit I find really fascinating. It can be this, it can be that. And it's like that on absolutely everything. If you really do throw your mind open to the prospect of there's this version and there's that version, it and I never forget. I had a conversation. Have you managed to listen to the podcast I had with Trevor to Jeff at all?
Only the first 10 minutes and then I got
Okay.
distracted, but it's on my to-do list.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. He mentions when we was talking about politics and bits and pieces, he said the train's always running on the track and it will consistently run on the track and people hop on the left hand side or on the right hand side and it constantly changes, but the train never stops. And I thought about that. That's very apt to the topic of conversation he was talking about. But then I just listening to you and I was thinking like this universal forcey, it will continue to go. And there's always the left hand side, the right hand side. You jump on the left, you jump on the right, but the train's always going. And it's a great adaptation to get into your mind that life just exists and it continually goes, as long as the track's there, of course. It just continually goes. And you've got the left hand side, the right hand side. You can choose the left hand side, you can choose the right hand side, you can jump on, you can jump off, you can jump on the other side, jump off. But the train is always going. There's that constant life force that's continually flowing and going. And we're here to like jump on, jump off, do this, do that. It's fascinating. It's a really interesting concept to actually get your head around.
I'm not sure I'm even on the train.
I don't think I'm ever on the train. Maybe when I'm asleep, I might be on that train. But yeah, most of the time I'm jumping on and off. But that's the free will, and we're given free will to do that to a degree. Yeah, it's interesting concept. Really interesting concept, dude. That's almost 2 hours.
Mate, it goes so fast.
It does. Enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed that. I love to be able to allow people to come on and just have that free thinking conversation without any sort of. I know all you guys are all building your channels, and like you just said, you've got a big responsibility, and it's so nice to bring someone on and just give them that break time away where they can just free think without being having a set agenda. It's almost like work. That's escape from work. So I really appreciate it, dude, and we must do it more often.
Yeah, I'm down. You let me know.
Yeah, for sure. I know Cobra wanted to come on, but he couldn't make it.
You have to
He's
squeeze a few in before the baby arrives.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's really funny. All the time, like when you're chatting away, I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, his life's really going to change soon. It's so going to change." And it's going to be really interesting to see you adapt into being a dad. And I think I've known you for a little while, but I genuinely mean this, and I mean it. But I think you're going to be a lovely father, and I'm really looking forward to you having that journey for your sake and your children's sake. I wish you a lot of luck for that, dude. I really do.
Thanks, bud. I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna try my best.
That's all you can do. That's
Yeah.
all you can do. But I, yeah, I hear what you're like with Winston, and
Oh, that dog lives. That dog lives the life. Like he has no complaints.
yeah, and I'm sure you're going to adapt that into your your offspring as well. It's beautiful. It really is. Really is, dude. Is there anything else you want to say? Do you want to talk about your indicator while you've got the opportunity?
No, I don't think
Nah.
so. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I think everyone knows where to find you now,
Yeah, I think they do. I think they do.
which is really cool. Thank you very much, dude, for coming on. We've had a good old nat about all sorts of stuff. Bitcoin seems to have done its thing today, which is really cool. We'll
Yeah,
see where
let's
it
see.
goes from there. It's
150K, mate. 150K.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Do you ever watch James Checkmate?
No.
James Check, I think his name. He's an Australian guy. He's really into this big data boy, and very down to earth in what he talks about. And yeah, he's been going on about 150 for a while now. Big Bitcoiner, but his data is very. He's got an uncanny way of taking away the what's the word, the clickbait style stuff that we see, and just comes at it at a pure data point of view.
Okay.
And I like that because that really sort of nullifies my stupid head sometimes. But it's positive stuff, very positive stuff. I'll try to remember. I'll try and find something and share it with you so you know who I'm on about.
Lambo season is coming.
I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people would love that. Would you get one?
Yeah, of course, of course.
You would get a Lambo,
Yeah, of course.
really? What's so special about a Lambo?
For all you know, I already have one.
That's
Think about
possible.
that.
Yeah, yeah, but that's up to you to
Don't
say.
say what's so
That's up
special
to
about
you
it.
to. That's up to you to say you've got one or not. I
Go
don't
and
know.
go and drive one and then tell me what's so special about one. Rent one and drive it, and then you'll see.
I've
There,
driven.
there's
Yeah.
nothing like it.
What is it? What makes you say there's nothing? What is it about you? What is it about what you've experienced to say there's nothing like it? Is it the
There,
noise? Is it the speed? Is it the thrill? Is
it's
it
the
the
whole
the
experience. Do you
ego?
know?
Is it what?
To be fair, do you know what's better? Ferrari is better. Lambos are very planted. They're very planted. You don't get the sense they're trying to kill you. But if you drive a Ferrari, you have to have your wits about you. The road has to be dry. uh, Ferrari is a different experience, and I noticed like for me personally, even in a non-supercar, even in just like a high performance car, if you've ever experienced this, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you turn the traction control off, you immediately have your heart rate go up 10 or 15 beats per minute because all of a sudden it's a different animal, right? When the traction control is there, or in a Ferrari like the SSC, the side slip control, when that stuff is switched on, then you know that you can't really die. Like you're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to really work hard to die. But the moment you turn the ESP and the traction control and all that stuff off, all of a sudden your heart rate goes up because you know that we're in a different league now, right? And and yeah, that experience is unmatched in my opinion. There's nothing quite like it. Knowing that if you are too heavy footed on the way out of a corner, like you're not going to make it, and you just have to experience it. Like going from a regular car, even what would be considered quick, to something like a an AMG or a top spec Audi, even that jump is massive. But then the jump from those kind of like top spec Audi, Beamer, AMGs up to the supercars is a new league. It's unmatched. And I suppose if you don't care about like driving and stuff, it doesn't matter. But the the G force that the acceleration produces, the amount of feedback you get from the steering, and the amount of caution you have to put into the pedals, and like even silly things like you can't be in the wrong gear when you go around a corner at full speed because if you shift down, then the wheels lock up and then the tail is going to wag. All of this stuff adds to this experience. And if you don't care about cars, none of it matters. But if you're a car guy, like there is no there is no experience quite like it. Um, so yeah, man, yeah, let's leave it there. But
No, it's absolutely fine. And I'm glad you've explained it that way because they're driver's cars. Yeah,
they are, but there's something more. There's something more primal about it. There's
it's
something about the ability that. So for a regular car, let's put it this way: a regular car is forgiving, right? You can stamp on the pedals and nothing really happens. You get to a more high performance car, like I said, like your Beamers, your AMGs, your top spec Audis. You put your foot down and they're still kind of forgiving, right? They snap around a lot. They might wag the tail a bit, but they're okay. But then when you get to the McLaren, the Lambo, the Ferrari, you're not allowed to stamp on the pedals. You stamp on the pedal, you're going to crash. And that is an experience that is unrivaled to any other car. Like you cannot just stamp on the pedals. If it's wet, you've got to be squeezing slowly. If it's wet, most people shouldn't be driving them probably. But it's just a different thing, man. It's just a totally different thing. And you would think, no matter what kind of cars you've had in the past or no matter how fast you've been, you would think, oh, yeah, it's not that bad. Like, it's just a bit quicker. No, 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 no. It's not a bit quicker. It is a totally different thing. Like, it is inconceivable. If you've never been in a supercar, when you get in a supercar, you cannot believe what happens. And even after you've owned one for like a year, you still can't believe it. They are a totally different beast. And if you're into your cars and you're into your petrol, you're a bit of a petrol head, then yeah, you will completely know what I'm talking about. But they are they are freakishly fast. They don't make sense. The amount of pull and the amount of power and the things they can do is completely unrivaled in any other area of the market. So yeah, man, that's my
very
little
good.
rant. We'll leave it there.
No, that's a lovely rant because all the time you're talking about that, I'm going back to the 80s and remembering getting a 3.1 RS Capri that I owned for a little while, which all those experiences, obviously, it's not a supercar, but to me at the time, it was a manual car that was a complete animal unless the road conditions were absolutely spot on. But for a 19-year-old, the road conditions were never spot on. And if you put a little bit of wet in it, well, you could, yeah. It was the same sort of thing for me personally. The back end was a complete animal. I used to put bags of cement in the back and sand just to try and keep it down on the floor a little bit. But what an experience. it was an amazing experience. Like the braking system was like you had to pump the brakes to stop. You used to shit yourself sometimes. You think, oh, freak, this ain't gonna stop. But you learn to respect and drive it as a driver. You just learn, and it just brought back all those memories. You're just talking about that. Thank you.
No worries, man. Yeah, you know the other thing that's really that only a supercar has, and that is the top end power. So even those like M5, the AMGs, all that stuff, once they get above about 110, 120 miles an hour, they really lag,
Yeah,
really, really lag. Like it notably to go from 120 to 150, 160, it's a long time. But in a McLaren, a Lambo, a Ferrari, it pulls. That's the difference. All the difference is made at the top end. They do not slow down. And again, that is a totally different kettle of fish. Most people are completely unaware of what that is like.
yeah.
So yeah, but that top end rip that you get from the supercars is unmatched anywhere else.
I can imagine. I can really imagine it. How cool. Am I too old? Am I too tall? 6'4".
Probably for a few of them, yeah. Probably from McLaren. I don't think you're getting a McLaren at 6'4".
Yeah, I nearly before I got the Audi that I had, me and my son went for a little drive, and I tried to get in a sorry, excuse me, an RS8. So the Audi RS8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get in one of those. Trying to get in it was a nightmare. But once I got in it, it was pretty cool. It was quite roomy, to be fair. I was quite surprised. But getting in and out of it at my age, and my son turned around and said, "Dad, grow up with it, for God's sake." And as for him, he couldn't get in it at all, but he's 6'9" nearly, so that doesn't help. But the noise, yeah, the noise. I'm still waiting for that cold start, dude.
Oh yeah, I'll send you one. Yeah, yeah, I'll send you one. I'll send you one.
Wicked.
Give me a couple of days.
Yeah. So Lambo season, yeah, could be.
Yep, Lambo season's coming for sure.
Could be, but not for me. I'd rather have my boat, dude.
Yeah, but then again, the boat will hemorrhage a Lambo money a year, right? You'll waste a Lambo a year maintaining the boat.
Yeah. I look better with a whiskey on a boat, though.
That's true. That's true.
Not in a Lambo.
Yeah, I mean, get both, right? Give it a few years, get both.
I'd like to have a track day, maybe. Just experience it, I suppose. Be a good idea.
To this day, I've never done a track day. To this day, I've never done one.
No.
No, I don't trust myself. I don't know why.
Yeah.
The insurance, getting it insured is nearly impossible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nearly impossible to get insurance for a track day, in
Okay.
my experience anyway. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I've never done it. Never done it.
Yeah. Oh, you're making me think back. No, I'm 60. I'm too old for all this. I just got to listen to you youngsters. For sure. Dude, thank you very much. I'm going to end the recording there. Stay on the line.
Yeah.
Take good care. Thank you very much for sharing that couple of hours of pure
Cheers, Uncle.
privilege. No worries at all. Can't wait to the next one. Take
Yeah,
care.
no worries. Cheers, bud.
See you. Bye.